Welcome to the Joy A.A.C.T. I'm Dr. Lisa Summerour, and I am here to tell you that transition, well, it's a part of life. And I'm here to share that with you. Whether it's the messy ones, the breakthroughs, or that real and rewarding work of becoming the best version of yourself. And I know that navigating that requires accountability, alignment, communication, and trust. And here is where we have those conversations. And today, we're having it in Calabria, Italy. I almost didn't come here, not because I didn't want to, but because I had to make a decision. Was I going to demonstrate that version of love that stays, or was I going to demonstrate the version of love that goes and trust that everything's going to be okay? We had a family emergency just less than 2 weeks before I was leaving for this trip, and everything for this trip had already been taken care of and paid for. The flights, the train rides. I even had a bus ticket purchased in case the flights that were getting delayed in Europe with me, and I needed to take a bus from one place to another instead of catching my second train. But what happened was my mom passed out in the kitchen one morning while she was fixing breakfast, and I just happened to be in the house working in the dining room. So I watched the whole thing, and it felt like it was happening in slow motion. And it's not just me and my mom. We have my 86-year-old aunt. Mom's sister-in-law lives with us, and she is not physically capable of taking care of herself. So there are a lot of moving parts that needed to be attended to as I was calling 911 and getting the ambulance to the house. And so fast forward, after we realized she's actually okay, they can't really pinpoint what it is. It could be some things that there's nothing they can do anything about. They've ruled out her heart. I'm telling you this because I don't want you worrying as you're watching the rest of this episode. But what I want you to understand is there are things that will happen sometimes that we have absolutely no control over. And for me, it was about deciding, where was I going to put my faith? What was I going to trust? And was I going to use that as a reason or an excuse not to follow through on one of my own dreams or plans? Or if I was going to use that as the reason to shut everything down and cancel everything, lose the money, miss this experience for myself, and stay home and probably live to regret it. Now, I think I'm in a little bit of a unique situation, or maybe it's just my situation, that I know my mother well enough to know she would have never wanted me to stay, knowing that, one, there was nothing I could do. We had enough people in place to be there for her if she did need anything. And at that point, by the time I was really ready to head to the airport, we had already gone through the emergency room, one doctor's visit, a referral to another one, and they were coming to the conclusion that as an 80-year-old, she's pretty doggone healthy. And they'll keep testing to see if they can figure out what this is. At the same time, it made me think of 10, 11 years ago when my dad, who raised us, my stepdad, was in hospice in my parents' living room. And I had come out to be with my mom, to be with him. And we kept thinking every day, he's getting sicker, he's getting sicker. And then it started getting to those days where the hospice care workers are kind of trying to prepare us that the end is coming. He's not eating anymore. He was still doing a little bit of water, but that even came to an end. And I was in my doctorate program, and I had to decide if I was going to stay there with my parents. Both of my sisters were nearby. My nieces were nearby. And I had to decide if I was going to stay there or fly from California to Indiana for my Saturday class that I had once a month for this doctorate program. And I really was struggling with this. I was struggling with this. And my mom said to me, if he was aware of what you were thinking about right now, this wouldn't even be a question. He would tell you to get up and get your butt to the airport and make that class on Saturday. And that's actually what I ended up doing. And after class, I remember that's sort of when the anxiety hit me of like, oh my gosh, my flight's not until tomorrow. What if my dad dies while I'm in transit? And then I realized again, if that's what happens, there's nothing I can do about it. I had done everything for him that I could do while I was there. And I had to make a decision. How am I going to demonstrate love at this point? Do I demonstrate it by dropping everything and sitting here? Or do I demonstrate it by getting on with my life? And as this conversation, I'm having this conversation in my head sort of right now. I can remember one of my brothers passing away and my grandmother talking to me because I had a job to do that had already paid me in advance and I wasn't going to be there for the funeral if I went. And she said, he's already dead. And it wasn't callous or cold. It was the way a 70-some-year-old woman at that time would talk to you about life because she had seen enough life and death to be able to say, you young people need to learn to get on with your life, to continue your life. But everybody was okay with it. And I think one of the messages I want you to get out of this is when you have big life decisions to make for yourself, when you have opportunities and experiences that may not come around again, and then you have something happen that's out of your control, you really do need to sit down and ask yourself, what are the possible outcomes? What are the things that I can be responsible for? What are the things that I can handle? And what things are 100% out of my control? And what will this look like in a year, 5 years, 10 years? I know had I stayed, I would have rationalized it somehow. But I also know that I would have regretted it. And I would have regretted it because I'm having an experience that for me is life changing. It is one of those, this has been one of those transitions in my life that this experience has actually been affirming. It has affirmed one of the transitions that I've made in my life in terms of me wanting to write and wanting to write screenplays specifically. And to have made the decision to do that and have this opportunity present itself for me not to take it, I know I would have resented, I would have regretted it and possibly been resentful towards someone about it. And that's just being real. It's being honest. I think sometimes we want to be so politically correct and be perceived as just being such good people that we don't want to be honest about the fact that if I had stayed because my mom wasn't feeling well, I would have probably harbored some resentment because even she was like, you need to get on that plane. One of the things I want you to get from this is that guilt is not a compass. Every time guilt shows up when you choose yourself, that's not wisdom, that's conditioning. That's conditioning, and it's something that you want to explore and examine and really dissect. How often is it that I feel guilty when I choose something for myself? Do I feel selfish when I make a choice that benefits me? And you could say it only benefits me, it doesn't benefit anybody else. You could go that far. And if you say that or feel that or think that to yourself and you start feeling guilt, how did you get conditioned to feel guilty when you do something for yourself? And every person is different, every situation is different. I am always a proponent for you to go to a clinically trained therapist if you really find this to be something that you can't move through with a strategy, something that you can't work through on your own or with guidance, with coaching. Definitely consider going to a therapist and see where this has come from, how far back it goes. But there is oftentimes, for most of us, there's a way that you can just sit down with that and ask yourself, when are those instances? And I'm thinking about a coaching program I was in myself. I was being coached through a program, and the challenge was for us to pay attention for a week. Here's a good exercise. Pay attention for a week when you put yourself second or third, when there's something that you want to do and you put yourself on the back burner and it doesn't get done. What are those things and when does that happen? And after a week of that, one of the things that I learned, and this is many years ago, but one of the things I realized was I could easily put myself on the back burner. And it could be something as simple as going to the gym and Xing that out or not getting my workout in. Or maybe I wanted to do something alone and I was talked into doing something with a group. Or maybe somebody in the family wanted something and I didn't do what I wanted to do because I wanted them to feel good. You need to look at that and see what those patterns are. And does it happen often with anybody, or are there only certain people where you see that pattern? So if you think about accountability as what is my responsibility? What's actually mine to carry? And if you realize you're carrying or trying to carry other people's responsibilities, because it doesn't really work, you can't really do it. I had to think about things. Would canceling this trip have made anything better for my mom? No. I would have just regretted it. She would have probably regretted it. And I hate to say it, but it could have even caused some strain between us, because I'm thinking I did this for you and you didn't even need me to be here. So those kinds of things happen. Alignment, I could look at it as, will staying make me a better caretaker or just make me available? And if it's just making me be available when there are other people who were there to step in if she did need the help, then that gives me another way of looking at this, that I am not the only person in my mom's world capable of being there for her if she had actually needed somebody to be there for her. So that's the accountability, the alignment. The communication, did I have this conversation first with myself? Was I honest enough with myself to say, what do you really, really, really want to do? And it was get on this plane and make sure I was here. And I also got to spend time with one of my sisters. So what did I communicate? Did I have these conversations and talk it through with anybody else? And I did. I was able to have a conversation with both of my sisters. And again, they were like, get on the plane. She's going to be fine. And then there's this trust component. When you know that there's nothing you can do about the situation that's happening. And it really does become, are you using this as another excuse to not do the thing that you want to do for yourself? Once you make the decision, and for me, once I made the decision, I needed to trust that everything was going to be as it should be. Everything was going to be fine. We have been texting and on WhatsApp and all of that. And this experience has just been fantastic. And I guess when I look around and I'm going to show you this view, it becomes really clear for me that boundaries are not walls. They are a blueprint for how we show up, because it's my responsibility to honor the boundaries that I set for myself. It's a guide for me, and other people get to see that. And it's up to me to make sure that I am paying attention to the boundaries that I've set and that I've honored those things, and being able to say yes when I mean yes and no when I don't. This is what I want to leave you with. I'm here. My family is well cared for. And I don't have to apologize for either one of those things. And that is not selfishness. That's the work. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And now go act in joy.